Now, my day started here rather earlier than I thought it might. At 6 o'clock, the phone started to go mad, as I learnt from a phone call that I picked up that Dame Alison Rose, yes, the former Chief Executive Officer of the NatWest Bank with its 19 million bank accounts, was to receive a £2.4 million payoff. Now, I thought to begin with, perhaps it was some form of sick joke. After all, think about what she did. She broke client confidentiality by telling the BBC's business editor at a dinner that I was a customer of Coutts Bank. She then, of course, went rather further than that, because in doing this and in saying that the amount of money in my account had fallen below the limit that you could read about on the Coutts website, she broke every single major rule and law that is set out for the banking industry by the FCA, the regulator of that sector. She then lied and tried to cover up the whole thing by saying, while she did say that I was a customer of the bank, she did not disclose any financial information, something directly contradicted by Simon Jack, the BBC's business correspondent. Now, if you were an employee of NatWest Bank and you did even a fraction of the things that she's done, you would be presented with a plastic box. You'd be told to pick up your personal possessions, to be out of the building within 5 minutes, and I very much doubt you would even get your monthly paycheck. But in the case of Dame Alison, no, the whole board conspired to try and cover the thing up, to try and keep her in her position, and then there had to be another late-night emergency board meeting after the government intervened, where she was not sacked, as she should have been, but no, she was allowed to resign, and therefore she gets £2.43 million in compensation. It isn't just reward for failure, it's actually reward for breaking the law, for breaching and for lying. And here's the worst bit. This bank, through its own greed and stupidity, which we had to bail out to the tune of £45 billion in 2008 and 2009, is still, because of its continued failure, 39% owned by us. So all of you as taxpayers, in a way, have contributed to this great big paycheck that Dame Alison is going to get. My modest request to the bank that could they please help me with some of my legal expenses that I've racked up in having to fight her lies have been studiously ignored. They're hiding behind an inquiry. They've kicked the whole thing into the long grass. They've appointed a city legal firm headed up by a man, Chris Hale, who himself has described Brexiteers as xenophobes and racists. What hope, what chance is there of any form of independent inquiry? And even my own subject access request to NatWest so I could find out what personal information Dame Alison had about my situation, even that has come back after the normal statutory 30 days, and I've been told that my case is complex and therefore it cannot be answered until the end of October. So before the inquiry, before any chance of a truth comes out, she's been awarded this pay package. I think the whole thing is a complete disgrace. And frankly, I think her behaviour and that of Sir Howard Davis, the chairman of the board, one of those great serial failures in British public life, he really is, I think we should be calling into question their knighthoods. I genuinely do. Sir Fred Goodwin, who previously headed up the RBS Bank Group, as it was known before it became NatWest, he lost his title for doing far less than these two have done. And I think the government, given that it owns 39% of the shares on our behalf, should act. I am disgusted, but maybe you've picked that up already. Well, I wonder what somebody experienced in this world thinks, and I'm joined now down the line by Daniel Hodson, former CEO and financial director of Nationwide, and of course before that one of the bosses of the life market in the City of London. Daniel, have I got anything wrong here? I mean, she breached confidentiality, she broke the FCA rule book, she lied about it, and the board tried to cover it up.
You're absolutely right. You put it beautifully, Nigel, as always. And I agree with you absolutely in principle. I think there's an awful lot of answering to be done here. I think one of the most fascinating things is to see what result comes out of this investigation, because, You know, the relationship between a chairman and a chief executive is very close indeed. Certainly that's my experience. And it's almost symbiotic. And you cannot believe that a lot of what was going on before it all became public was actually known not only to Sir Howard Davis, but also to the board. And it would be very interesting to see whether Mr. Chris Hale and Travis Smith actually uncover this. I also totally agree with your point about there being one rule for the senior people and one rule for the ordinary person. This is absolutely the most egregious breach of confidentiality, something one's taught from the very beginning in banking. And it's a terrible shame because it's undermining our prime industry just at the moment when we need it most badly, because to shore up our economy, we've got all sorts of regulatory opportunities yet to be fulfilled. And we need to get it going much, much better than it is without this kind of distraction.
Well, I agree, Daniel, because, you know, financial services is Britain's biggest industry, and these actions, frankly, have trashed our reputation around the world. Now, look, you're a man of great influence in this whole financial world. Can't you have a word with the Chancellor of the Exchequer? Can't you have a word with the government? Because they hold in trust 39% of the shares of this bank. We are, jointly and collectively, the biggest shareholders. And I just don't see how Dame Alison and Sir Howard can be allowed to get away with this.
Well, I think it's the board too, and as you would no doubt know, there are all sorts of communications with both the Chancellor and indeed the City Minister on this particular score. It's very, very important for the future. And I think that it's important also, if the money does go to Dame Alison, and this is perhaps something for your viewers to consider, that if she gets all that money, why doesn't she give it to charity? And you might even ask your viewers what sort of charity she might give it to. She might think about giving it to debanked charities, or she might think about giving it, you know, to homeless or invalided armed forces personnel who are sleeping on the streets, compared with some one or two illegal people coming into this country via the channel. How about that for a thought, Nigel?
Very good thought indeed, Daniel. Delighted that you joined me and commented the way that you did. And please put some influence on the government. You've got more power than I've got in this regard.
We're doing
Daniel
our best,
Hodgson,
Nigel.
thank you. You certainly are. Thank you. Now, next Tuesday, midnight, Monday night into Tuesday, will come in one of the most